Hello?
Hey, the webinar is now
We're
broadcasting.
now broadcasting?
I think so.
Okay, fantastic. So my name's Adam. I'm from the e-Residency program, and I spend a lot of time talking about e-Residency and talking about e-residence. And to be honest, people are bored of me because I think people would much rather hear from e-residents themselves, and specifically about what kind of companies people are starting through e-Residency. And there's two reasons for that. One is so that other people in the e-Residency community can learn more about how to use e-Residency from people who have already gone through the process and set up their companies. And the second reason is that there's lots of fantastic companies within the e-Residency community that have products and services that they can offer each other. And it'd be really fantastic to explore that more and find out how they work. So this is a new series we're going to do of webinars where e-residents can explain what companies they're running. So the first people joining us are Ian and Luke. I first met Ian in South Korea when we were setting up the e-Residency collection center there. And Ian has always been incredibly knowledgeable and helpful. Even before this webinar was about to begin, he was, they were both helping me how to actually use this webinar technology. I should point out that Ian actually speaks a bit of Estonian. So you don't have to speak Estonian in order to be an e-resident, but you're more than welcome to try learning. So it's fantastic that Ian has learned a bit. Yeah, so when I first met Ian, I thought, this guy speaks better Estonian than me. He's more knowledgeable about the e-Residency program. I really hope he doesn't take my job. Yeah, so and then I met Luke as well when Ian and Luke last came to Estonia and they were exhibiting their company. And I thought, you know, this is a really interesting company, and I think a lot more people in the e-Residency community and beyond would like to know more about it. Over to Ian and Luke. Maybe you want to start by just explaining what your company is and what products and services it offers.
Yeah, so our company is called StadiaMaps, and the short version of what we do is we take data from OpenStreetMap and then we process it into a format you can use inside your web or mobile application. Most of you are probably already familiar with companies like Google Maps and Mapbox, ways that you can get an interactive map on your website or into your mobile application. And we provide the data that you need in order to do that. It's called Map Tiles. That's our core product. And we also do routing, so you can figure out how to get directions from point A to point B.
And how, maybe you want to introduce yourselves as well, like how did you both meet?
Yeah, so we both met about 8 years ago, I think. Ian was a
That's about right.
last semester senior in college, and I was a first semester freshman, and I saw this guy working in the computer science labs, and he seemed like he had his head on his shoulders and knew what he was doing. So I tried to get to know him a little bit, but it's just a semester, so we didn't have too much time. And then fast forward a couple years, and maybe 3 or 4 years ago, we connected through Twitter and discovered that our interests were basically exactly the same across programming and music and so on and so on. So
I think we actually started working on our cars together before
Yes, we
started working on code together. We both had the same model of classic BMW. It was the late 80s, early 90s 3 Series.
And so out of that, we ended up we started coding together and then had some common contracts. And out of one of those contracts, we discovered the need for inexpensive and good-looking maps for the web and for mobile. And we saw an opportunity and we took it. So that's kind of how we ended up starting a company together.
And you're on different screens, and I understand you're not in the you're not even in the same country. Like what university? You wanted to get away from each other.
No, not quite. We both have, we have a joke again with each other that we're basically just like split clones of each other, and he's the European version and I'm the Asian version. So he found himself a Swiss girlfriend while he was in college. Well, actually, did you guys even meet when you were in college, or was it after?
It was after.
Slightly after. So, okay, so anyways, he got himself a Swiss girlfriend, and then they got married last August. And then I went to their wedding and everything. That was fun. Got to see Switzerland. And then I had been dating a South Korean girl for pretty much as long as we'd known each other, actually. And so I got married just about a month after he did and moved to South Korea. So
I am now
multiple times
permanent resident in Switzerland, and he is a permanent resident in South Korea.
It's a truly global company then.
It is.
Yep. we literally have customers all over the world.
I have to ask then, like, where did e-Residency come in? When did you hear about that, and how did that fit into the story?
So I discovered e-Residency first, and I was like, this is really cool. I've never seen a country actually try to do something like this. So I shared it with Ian, and we both were like, this is a really cool idea. And so I think both of us signed up just because we were fascinated with the concept. And it wasn't until a year or two later that we actually found ourselves needing to be able to actually start companies through it. So I'll let Ian talk a little bit more about that.
Yeah, when we signed up then, I didn't even have a clue what I was going to use it for. Like Luke said, I just basically signed up on the idealistic side of things because I thought this is just really cool and I like what they're doing. Then when things started moving towards moving outside the US, then I started thinking, okay, you know, I've got all this paper admin and stuff that I'm going to have to keep up if I keep running through a US LLC. And then with the way the US tax structure works, then I would have to start paying, or I'd still have to pay state taxes to a state that I don't actually live in and doesn't really provide any services for me except just I've got my company registered there, I guess. So that's when I decided that I was going to start my own personal company through e-Residency last June. And so I moved all my consulting work to that as soon as I moved to Korea. And then, then Luke and I started a company together, and so it's really solved our problems as far as administration goes.
That's good. How does it compare to administration in other countries, including where you live now?
Yeah, so well, there's a couple of levels of that, I guess. One is that you don't have to do anything on paper, which is just really convenient. You don't have to go find a printer, print something out, sign a document, and scan it back in or something like that. You can do everything with your ID card. And the thing one thing that doesn't really get played up enough with the whole e-resident ID card aspect is that you've got high-level encryption hardware built into that. You have a smart chip with private keys baked into it and everything. And so everyone in Estonia knows how to use this, which is huge because in the US, I still have accountants that'll email me documents just like you got all my ID numbers and everything, and it's just coming back over in plain text. And it's like, do you guys not know how to use encryption? But the Estonian people, all the accountants and everyone I've dealt with actually knows how all this stuff works. And that's like a really big thing from a privacy and security standpoint, is that I can send them directly documents that are encrypted. As far as other kinds of like business management goes, it's pretty similar to the US in terms of like reporting requirements for a small company like an LLC. You just have to file like one report a year or something like that. It's not that difficult. The comparison to South Korea is that it's way cheaper to set up a company in Estonia. And I think I'll let Luke tell a bit about Switzerland too, but in Korea, then the process costs you several $1,000s and takes over a month in order to set up just a simple small company. It's not very easy, and nobody speaks English.
A lot of the advantages on my side as well. I also have a e-Residency company set up for my consulting work. And the reason I did that was the minimum requirement for capital in Switzerland for any type of company you found is 25,000 francs. So you're talking an initial startup cost of a very large percentage of my annual salary. So starting an e-Residency company just made sense. And then I think another advantage is access to banking for Ian, because a South Korean company, their banking system is quite wonky.
Yeah, trying to do any kind of international transfers or anything in Korea is incredibly complicated. Banks are very hard to work with.
Thankfully, I do not
sorry.
have that problem in Switzerland, but I do have easier access because I hold a U.S. passport, and U.S. passports can make access to banking in Switzerland a little bit difficult. So having a company that has an EU-based bank account is quite helpful.
I mean, the other thing I want to ask is, because I've met you both in Estonia now, you've been a few times, Ian speaks a bit of Estonian. Like, it's interesting because the point of the e-Residency program is that you can be anywhere in the world, you can do business anywhere. We don't require you to come to Estonia. Like, why do you keep coming back to Estonia? Where did that come from?
I guess I'll go first. Well, I think the summer weather is fantastic. Compared to most places that I live, the weather is very, very hot. So I really like the weather in Thailand in the summer. I love going for the Latitude 59 event specifically because there's just this massive group of couple thousand people that are all doing interesting, very similar things. You've got something in common with everyone there. They're doing something in, interesting tech. They're involved in a startup in some way. And a lot of them are very globally minded too. So you just get to network with a lot of really cool people. And then, there's just the natural beauty of the area. It's a great place to go and hang out for a week. Yeah.
And you've been speaking to Estonian government officials in Estonian?
I did write a very short email to one of them because I got an email in Estonian.
Yeah.
I also walked into the tax office on my first visit to try and ask them some questions about VAT. I didn't get super far, but they were really surprised that some random foreigner walked in and had any idea what he was doing. It was hilarious. That was a great time.
I've been into the tax office in Estonia a few times and it's been empty because
yeah,
doing it online.
Yeah, it was great.
It's a really interesting lesson for us that a lot of e-residents do want to engage more with Estonia, and we need to do more to connect Estonian companies with e-resident companies, and give you more opportunities for, if you want to find out more about Estonia, visit Estonia, learn about Estonia, perhaps one day move to Estonia. We need to make sure that all those options are available to you as well, even though at the same time, the point of e-residency is that you don't have to do any of this. You don't have to visit Estonia, but you're always welcome. So I guess going back to your company, StadiaMaps, so can you explain, where did the idea for this come from?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the idea came from a client of ours because so Google Maps has, they're the most well-known, obviously. Everyone puts Google Maps into their website, or at least they did up until a few months ago. They were famous for having a really generous free tier, so you didn't have to pay anything for this. You could just drop Google Maps into your website, and sure, there might be an ad or something here or there, but it's free for you. Then all of a sudden, our client, who it wasn't even a large part of their website, it was just a few small features on various pages that they had these maps embedded. They were going from free to facing a bill of $750 US a month. And so Luke and I were we don't want to tell them they have to get rid of the map, but at the same time, the boss doesn't want to pay $750 a month. So there's got to be some better way to do this. We like solving problems, and we were aware of the existence of OpenStreetMap and other sites based off of that. But we realized that the styling of them was not very visually attractive. If you go and pull up OpenStreetMap.org, then you'll be like, what am I looking at here? This it's not very easy on the eyes. So we wanted to find something that we could be proud of and present to people, and it also didn't cost a fortune.
And can you give some examples of how businesses could use it?
Mm-hmm. Luke, why don't you take that one?
Yeah, so most of our businesses are focused around events or venues that they want to put on their website. So for instance, think of a realtor who wants to show all their properties on their website. They need some kind of base map tiles to give people context where it is, where each of the properties are. Or for instance, a website that has a lot of running events and they want to display them across the country, across the world, wherever they're located. Those types of companies use us a lot. We have a website in the UK that uses us to display all kinds of RV camping sites across the United Kingdom. A lot of fitness websites are starting to use us. They basically give functionality to users to plot their routes via biking or running or cycling. And that type of application also uses our routing. So they want people to be able to click on one point on the map and then click on another point a few kilometers away and find a route between the two that works for whatever mode of transportation they want to use. So that's a high-level overview of the types of companies that use us right now.
It's interesting because when I first heard about your company, I was thinking about kind of plotting out on a map your own locations and whatever, like your own offices or shops or something.
Mm-hmm.
And, for a business starting up, you might not actually have any of those to put on a map. But then when I looked into it more, I realized that, it's these businesses, they're not putting their own locations on the map. It could be locations that already exist and they're just providing a useful service. And you mentioned the church finder. That was your first client.
Yes.
Yep.
And, that company sells something completely different. It's not that the church finder service is a side thing that they do, which,
right.
and I'm guessing kind of that is useful for search engine optimization, for helping people come back to the website.
It's mostly for users of the site to say what's nearby me. I like they're kind of like a YouTube style site. So it's like, okay, I like the content on your site, so I want to find something like this nearby me so I can go in person and visit this church.
And they provide downloadable audio.
Yes.
So their business is completely different.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The technology for.
Yeah. That's a really good point you raised, because a lot of our use cases that we see don't have anything that you would immediately say, oh, you need maps for this business. So it's an ancillary thing.
I'd say that's something we have learned, is that the types of companies that need maps it's a way bigger pool of companies than we ever would have thought.
So who uses it at the moment? Can you give us other examples?
Yeah, so the ones offhand that I can remember are, we've got one that's a traffic camera database in Norway. That one's really fun, actually. In fact, why don't I share my screen here and I can take you through a couple of these.
Yeah.
We'll do it. Okay, can you guys see that? Yes,
we can.
So this one here is a off-campus housing site for universities. The company that runs this is not directly affiliated with any of the universities. They have like a couple dozen clients. The universities are clients on one hand, and then they have property managers that go and list. And so they connect universities, property managers, and students together. And then you can see this listing here of, think like Zillow or Redfin or something, and you can say, okay, well, what's this particular property here? You can see what's around. This is actually a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun making this. So we pull in data from Foursquare's API. Foursquare is it's kind of like Yelp or something. It's a review website where you can find things that are nearby a particular place. So you can see what are the different things that are nearby my house. Like I've got a sushi shop right here. You've got a probably like, I don't know, a bar or something like that. Yeah, so you've got a pub, and you can see it's only 0.37 miles away. You can see how long it is to walk to school, what the exact path is. This is done using our routing service, by the way, as well. Yeah, you've got this is one client of ours. They do off-campus housing. As Adam mentioned earlier, you've got the Sermon Audio Church Finder. So you could say, okay, I'm in central London. What do we have here? And then you can see all the stuff is kind of grouped up in these little bubbles until you zoom further in, and then you can see, okay, here's the individual churches around here. This one's a lot of fun. This is probably my favorite client of ours. You can drop a bunch of pins on a map, and you can say, okay, right here is the Tallinn airport. Then let's zoom in on Old Town here. Oh, these guys are using 3D buildings. I love this. I didn't even realize that. So let's pick a location right here in the middle of Old Town, and then we'll say Old Town. And then when you zoom out here, you can see they've got a route now on the map, and they can see the exact route between the airport and downtown. And then you can click on the map at any point and say, well, I don't really want to go that way. I want to take this road over here. And you can see the line. You've got this little gray line that shows up showing you the new route and how long it's going to be. And then you can let go, and then you can just create custom routes like this. And this is great for things like event planning, where you're trying to plan like the route of a run or something like that, and you want to take a kind of a specific route. You know your start and your end points, but you want to hit certain key points along the way. So yeah, this was a very good use of our routing engine here. The other thing that these guys did that isn't immediately apparent is these guys are actually using a custom theme. And that's something cool with our vector map tiles. You can actually style them any way you want. This is something that is a bit more of an advanced user feature. You have to have some pretty decent knowledge of how all the programming works in order to do this. But this is something that you can do yourself, or that you can hire us to create a custom style if you want. And these guys are using 3D buildings and stuff, and it looks really fantastic. You can see all the points of interest around Old Town and everything. So that's I guess the third in the list of interesting clients. And this one that I mentioned really quickly is a Norwegian traffic camera database. So they've got all these webcams that are around Norway, and you can just click on any of these. There's thousands of them, and you can see, okay, oh, whoops, I wanted to click on a live one. They've got quite a few here that are actually live, and we'll see if it works. Using Access Webcam. I did not try this in advance, by the way. I have no responsibility for this data. But yeah, here you can see the water rippling. You can see a guy walking across the bridge or something. Oh, and apparently it's an automatic panning camera too. You can see a yacht sailing in there. Just random stuff that you never would have thought about. We're always impressed with what our clients come up with. So that's a quick tour of some of the people that are using us right now.
So if anyone is watching this from Norway right now and is planning a trip immediately after this webinar, then you can check what the conditions are like on the way.
That's exactly it. It's so cool. They even got all the way up in Svalbard here.
And my favorite random fact about Svalbard: the only place in the world where you don't need a visa.
I know, right? We need to get e-resident company. That's like the ultimate embodiment of it, right? That's great.
So you've started speaking to Estonians and e-residents about using this software as well, have you? Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, we were at Latitude 59, and we had a booth there, and we got a couple of good contacts.
Ian, Luke, I guess one key question I want to ask is about how much technical knowledge you need for this. And if you're not very technically minded, if you're someone like me, for example, what are your options for still using it?
Yeah, so I guess, well, the short answer is you have to know a very basic amount of code in order to build something, but it's not anything incredibly complicated, and it's exactly the same as what any of our competitors are. So we've actually got a pretty comprehensive documentation site here, docs.stadiamaps.com. You can pull that up, and that's linked from our homepage and everything, and you can get all the information that you need there. I'm gonna do a real quick walkthrough of how you might set this up on your own site. first I'll give a quick overview of the two major kinds of interactive maps. There's vector and raster maps. Those sound like really complicated technical terms, but they're really pretty simple. Vectors are things that are very smooth to zoom in and zoom out because it's actually describing the geometry of the shape. Whereas rasters are just like photographs. It's just the image that you're zooming in and zooming out of. So I can do a quick example here of, this is how a vector works. So if we go over to Estonia here and we start zooming in, notice that even though the tiles haven't all loaded yet, the text still stays really smooth and very legible. This is the main feature of vector maps. But then with rasters, if you start zooming in, notice how things look kind of like big and pixelated at first. That's because it actually has to load an image of that. So this is basically just a bunch of little pictures that are stitched together in your web browser. And why would you ever use the pictures that are stitched together over the vectors? Well, because old web browsers don't support it, unfortunately. So a lot of our clients still use the raster ones because they need to support older web browsers, particularly versions of Internet Explorer. But to integrate something like this, then we've actually got sample code that you can literally just copy and paste in. That's actually exactly what I did for the two demo pages that I showed you here. The code is not very complicated. If you want, I can do a really quick overview of what each of these things do. Most of this is just HTML boilerplate. You can find tutorials online from like W3 schools or Khan Academy or something to get a basic intro of how HTML and JavaScript work. This is some styling information here. This basically just says we want the map to take up the entire screen because that's how this and a lot of maps work. And then here's the real magic that I guess makes stuff happen. We point it to a particular style URL. So this one right now is using the outdoors theme, which looks like this. And you can see there's a lot of green and stuff. It kind of tries to highlight outdoor kinds of things. Or let's go over to Switzerland real quick, actually. Switzerland's great for this because they've got like a bajillion mountains. So if we start zooming in on Switzerland, then we can start seeing mountains pop up. So like you've got Eiger and stuff. You got all the mountains around Switzerland because these are kinds of things that people who are doing outdoors kinds of stuff like campsites, for example, would want to have on their map. But we can change it. We've got a variety of themes and we go through all of them here. All that you need to do if you want to get a different look is change the theme URL. So we're doing a vector map here. So we just change this final part of the URL here. And then when we reload the page, then if all goes well, it's got a different style. Yeah, so it's pretty simple to get just a basic map up, obviously. That's not complicated. Then you probably want to start doing more complicated stuff though, like putting pins on the map. Well, we've also got a few tutorials on that here. We've got info on how you can add markers to the map. You basically specify the latitude and longitude coordinates and you can just copy and paste this code and add additional features on the map and so on. So it's, it requires a basic amount of technical knowledge, but it doesn't require a lot in order to build a very basic map. If you want to do something like the Sermon Audio Church Finder though, or like this, this interactive route planner, then you're going to need to have, you know, some more advanced coding skills.
So either have coding skills or find someone who does, or
yes,
or you both offer the service as well yourself, do you?
We do. That's yeah, that's what we do, is we do programming all day long. So if you need any help or you want to build a website, then yeah, come to us.
And can we talk about pricing then? And you mentioned at the start about comparing the pricing to Google, and that's where the initial idea for starting this business came from. So how does the pricing work?
Yeah, so our pricing is you actually know what you're going to pay up front. So our free plan obviously starts at free, and we provide this is for a relatively low traffic website, like a personal blog or something like that. We do ask that if you're doing this for a business or something, if this is commercial use, that you actually pay for our base plan, which is $25 a month. The starter plan, I know this is the hardest thing to explain to people is, oh, well, how many map views am I going to get? Well, this will do just fine for most websites. Unless you know you're a big deal, you probably don't need to pay for a higher plan. And if you're on the fence, then just sign up. Just pay us $25 a month. And if you go consistently over, then as long as you're actually on a paid plan, then we have like a soft quota enforcement system. So we're not just gonna cut you off and be like, oh, you're over your limit. That's actually what Google does. You'll see if you go over your limits, then they'll have a big thing on there. Or
also, to add to that quickly, we also do not charge for overages. So if a couple days of the month you have a lot of traffic because you got on some major news website and they all link to you and you all of a sudden got 3 or 4 times the amount of traffic you normally receive, it won't change your pricing whatsoever. It would just be a blip on the radar as far as we're concerned. So
yeah, because what we realized is that it doesn't, like the amount of like the way that Google does it and Mapbox does it is it's per group of 1,000 requests, I think. And so they're saying that if you make just another 1,000 requests, then that's going to cost you another 50 cents or something like that. And we're looking at the numbers and we're like, well, it doesn't actually cost us nearly that much just to serve another 1,000 requests for you in reality. So we are happy to pass the savings on to you. And, you know, if someone goes way over suddenly, it's probably not going to kill us. So we would rather have you have a consistent bill and then just talk to you about it and say, okay, look, you're going way over, you need to upgrade.
The idea is consistency and transparency so that you know the bill you're getting every month and that doesn't change, doesn't vary wildly based on your traffic. So you can plan for your expenses.
Okay. And you spoke a bit about kind of customizing the map and putting it in different styles. Like what else do you have control over? Like what else can you put on there or take off the map?
Yeah, so at the moment, our schema comes from it's an open source schema. It's called Open Map Tiles. It is a pretty rough approximation of what you would want to see at any zoom level of the map. Most of the data is there, and it's just up to you to decide how to style it. We do have a couple of beefs with some of the choices that they made though. So we're actually in the process of rolling our own right now. So we're going to give you better choices than the schema that we're working off of. But I would say most of the data that you want is probably accessible. It's just up to you.
And then of course, with any of our maps, so we provide the base layer, but then you can add whatever you want on top of that. You could add additional layers over top. Let's say you wanted to overlay all the country boundaries as a clickable geometric shape. You could do that. If you wanted to, of course, add as many markers or pins or things like that, there's the full capability of whatever the mapping library you're using to overlay things. For instance, when Ian was showing the demo of the routing, all those are things just added directly to the map using, that route right there is generated by the map. The visualization is generated by the map. And then for one big advantage of vector maps is the data isn't in an image, so you can do whatever you want on the front end with that data. So for instance, if there's some type of data that is in the schema that everyone actually gets, but we don't choose to show because it's not useful for most of our users, you as customizing the map could say, okay, we want to show all the possible city labels everywhere, regardless of whether they overlap or something like that. Or we want to show only these types of points of interest, or we want to show all the streets at every zoom level so you can see a full transport network or rail or whatever the type of data. The idea is that with vector you have a lot more control about turning things on and off, whereas with raster, which is what he's showing right here, we actually we would have to change something on our side to make it a truly custom thing.
Mm-hmm. I'm just going to show a quick example of what you were talking about. So even when you're zoomed in all the way on Old Town Tallinn, then you can see there's no points of interest on this map. This particular style is designed only for, very bare bones. It's designed to have a lot of your own information put on top of it. That's what we designed this for. However, you can see on this map, then they have a whole bunch of points of interest because that is something that is actually useful for their users. It's all coming from the same database.
Mm-hmm.
They've just chosen to show more than we showed on this particular style.
That's really interesting. And, we're trialing this e-Residency community platform as well. And we have a map built into that as well. And I must say, it's like the most popular feature we have because e-residents can pin themselves on a map of the world, like with their profile, give their location, and then you can search around the world and see who you want to network with, who's relevant to you because they're in the same industry and country as you, or maybe you're visiting a new location and you want to see who's local. Maybe we can use this kind of software for e-resident meetups as well. And here you've got a nice map. You've got the map here showing the way from the airport to Club Hollywood. Maybe we meet up there, or maybe we'll find another location.
That was not intentional, but you're actually right. That is right about
Ian, Luke, is there anything about this software that I've missed that people might need to know?
I don't think we have discussed our static maps options.
Okay.
So the very basic, simplest option we have is what's called a static map, which is a simple image. You can display it just like any other image on your website. This is very useful for you want to show the relative location of a venue relative to everything around it, but you don't need any interaction. You can use just a very simple URL format and embed this directly into your website with very little coding experience. And that would give you pretty easy integration if you don't need interaction for your users and they just need to get a point of reference where this location is. With these static maps, you have the option to add pins, as this example shows, and a few other options. There's a few different options as far as pins. We're looking into adding different colors of pins and things like that, so that you can very easily, very quickly get a simple map on your website without all the work it would take to add a full interactive experience.
This is actually, by the way, what our client was using beforehand, by the way. They did not have a fully interactive map. They were just using these simple images embedded into their pages. And that's what ended up almost costing them $750 a month.
Oh, really?
But yeah.
That's the Church Finder. The Church Finder was originally a static map, was it?
Yep. Just small ones, one on each church's individual page. It wasn't even a real full-fledged finder. And then we're like, hey, we can make this so much better. So we did. Luke and I worked on that together.
So it's a major improvement, and they no longer need to pay 700 euros per month or whatever Google's charging.
Yeah.
And now, that was originally, and I think now that cost would be in the thousands of dollars a month.
It would be now.
Because of the recent pricing changes.
Yeah. Just a real quick, I just want to show how simple this is. So basically, it's stadiamaps.com/static. Then you put the theme name here, and you can get that from our themes list here. Then you say center. This is latitude and longitude of the center point of where you want the map to be looking. Then you pick a zoom level, and then you just have these vertical bar separated markers. And then all of those markers get rendered at the points that you specify on the map. And then finally, you have a size that you want the output image to be. So this is very simple to just embed in your website or mobile app or whatever.
Perfect. I guess we should probably wrap up, but maybe as a final thing, if you could show us like your homepage and like the contact details so people know what to do. Yeah.
So here's our homepage. We've got interactive demos at the top of all 3 of our styles that we currently offer. You can obviously go get started and stuff. We have a, do we have a direct contact button? I don't think we have a direct contact button on here. Oh yeah, we do. We have our email here right on the page, info@stadiamaps.com. So if you have any questions, then do please send us an email. One other thing I forgot to mention, if you're just starting off developing this on your own local machine, like I'm doing here, I'm just running a simple web server on my local machine for these quick demos that I put together. You don't need to sign up. You don't need to enter a credit card to sign up or anything like that. But for these, I don't even have any, authentication information or anything. You can just run this on your own local computer for free.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Ian, Luke, I want to thank you so much for taking the time for doing this. Do you have any final messages to e-residents or to anyone else watching?
Don't think so.
But what about an inspiring last message to someone who might be thinking about starting a company, becoming an e-resident, starting a company, and maybe using your technology?
Well, inspiring message is just do it. One of the things that I had to get over myself was you always feel like you're not good enough to go and start your own thing. You look at, oh, well, there's someone out there, some company or whatever that's doing something better than me. Well, that's true, but that's always going to be the case. And if you keep thinking that, then you're never going to actually get anywhere. So just get out there and put your product out there, put out the minimum viable product, and yeah, just do it. There's plenty of money to be made. You don't have to completely unseat Google or Mapbox or whatever in order to make an impact in the market.
And when you start small, you can spend a lot of time talking to your customers. And as they tell you, we really need this, you can listen to them and you can make that happen where the bigger players wouldn't be able to. And that's where you find your niche and you can build from there.
Perfect. Well, I wish you both the best of luck, and thank you for giving up your time this morning. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.